So what we're doing is a coil pot. And you're going to make, it's a coil bowl. I want the bowl to be roundy so that you learn how to create something that has a curve. And this is practice for a bigger project, which is going to be your coil vase, jar, or pitcher. That's going to be taller and have curves to it. So the first thing you do is you start with a well-wedged piece of clay, which I've already well-wedged from last period. Don't look at that. And I'm going to flatten it out. And I'm not using a rolling pin because I can make a good enough slab base for it without having to do that. But if you want to roll it out, you can. Your base should be about 1/4 inch or less thick. And then you're going to find something to use as a circle base. So I'm using the inside of the tape thing, and I'm going to trace around the inside. You can even stand up if you need a bird's eye view. And then I'm going to cut it. I like this tool, but you can also use the X-Acto knives. I tried to save my X-Acto knives for to stay sharp and special, but you guys keep returning them over there, so you're going to have to find them over there too. So this should be a little more even. I'm just going to make sure it's even. I'm going to smooth these edges because that's a good way to be nice to your clay and make sure you're starting out all right. And now I'm going to roll coils. So it might have been a while since you played with Play-Doh and rolled coils, because that was one of the tasks to do. And when I've looked this up on YouTube even, just to see, I was like looking on YouTube last semester to see if I didn't have to make a video, to see if anybody made a coil pot like I do. But then I just had to make my own. So you start with a big hunk of clay, or a big enough hunk of clay, and you've got to spread your fingers out. And you've got to roll it back and forth a lot, because sometimes it starts to get like it just has two sides, and you want it to be round. So it takes a little while to make it roundy and like a long snake. And you can use your two hands and roll out from the center too, but you might need to stand up, because if you sit here at your desk like this with a piece of clay and go like this, you're not going to have a very good coil, and it's going to look flat, and it's not going to be very long either. So you want it to be long. So sitting here like this makes no coil. What you'll want is enough desk space, so some people can work at this table today because these two are gone. You shouldn't have all your bisqueware in front of you. You should clear your desk out so that you don't knock it on the floor while you're rolling your coil. And so now I have a lovely long coil, and it should be about this thick, not much thinner than this, or the clay will crack. That will be a pain in the neck to use. It could be a little bit thicker than this. So you want something about this size or a little bit bigger. Then what you're going to do is you're going to just put it on your base, right around the base, and it's going to hit and overlap this one part here. So it's going to overlap like that, and then what I'm going to do with my sharp little tool, and you can use a fettling knife to do this too, is cut right down and cut into that bottom one too, because that bottom little end is a little bit squished. It's not as fat as it could be. It's not as even, so I get rid of that and I put it right on there. So the first thing I do is I'm going to use a tool. This wood tool is a good one. Or, of course, my favorite thumb tools are good ones. But you're going to connect the clay at the base. And so the big question is, why aren't we using the scoring method? Well, you don't have to use the scoring method when you're doing coil. Coil is like one of the earliest methods that those old ancient people used to make pots. It's like a precursor, actually, to working on the wheel, even. So just adding the coils and smooching them together, or luting them together is the appropriate word, but I like smooching and scooching too. You smooch this whole bottom around the base all the way around so that you don't see that connection at all. Okay? It's all scooched together. Then you've got to do it on the inside. And so I'm going to connect it on the inside, coil to base as well. And this kind of connection will be strong enough and sturdy enough for your little coil pot to last and not fall apart. So initially it looks a little messy. It's a little messy. You just use your finger and clean it up. Or you can use a tool to clean it up. So then I'm going to take my next coil. So this is the point where I want to make sure you guys see how this is going to grow out. It can't grow out really wide really quickly because it will flop and turn into a plate, but it should come out and be curvy because that will get you ready for the curves of the vase. And usually pottery, vases or pieces in clay or forms in clay look better with a little bit of a line to them, not just straight sides. Sometimes the straight sides are good, but in this case I want you guys to learn how to make things that have a line to them and meaning a curve to them. So the next thing I'm going to do is put the next coil on, and because I'm such an expert, I made a long enough coil that I can use it. But I'm not going to start it where my first connection was because that's already a weak point. You guys know that from putting slabs together. So I'm going to then put the coil a little bit on the outside of that bottom coil, and I'm also going to start it not in the same place as that first coil at where it met, and I'm going to overlap it a little bit. And then I cut it's like about a quarter or half inch in over the bottom piece, because that way it really makes sure that they meet together evenly, like that. And then I'm going to do another coil, and again, not started in the same place. I make it go, oh, darn it, I'm going to have to roll out a new coil. So I take a big enough piece of clay, and I start with one hand rolling it. It's easier for me to roll the coils standing up because you need to have enough pressure on it. And coordinated people can roll the coil with both hands. What's in my hallway? Okay, so I'm going to start it. I'm going to place it on the outside of that last one so that I'm starting to build up a curve. I'm going to overlap it like I did before and cut it about a half inch in so that they meet together. And I could put on maybe one more coil, which I think I will if this one's not long enough. I don't think I will. So now a couple of other tools you can use. This is a banding wheel. You can put it on the banding wheel, and that's going to help you smooth the clay so it's more symmetrical. So when you start with your coil pot and you've got two or more coils on it, you can start to smudge. I would smooth it with 2 or 3 coils high, and then you can start the smoothing process. So what I did here was I did that first connection like I showed you, and then in this one I smoothed the inside first, and then the coils are going to stay on the outside only. So that's how I did that one. This one you can decide, well, if you like the texture of the coils on the outside, then smooth the inside. If you don't like the texture so much, you're going to smooth the outside. And when you do, you're going to smooth it. You might have to get down here to see me do this. You're going to smooth it with a tool and push the clay down into the line beneath it. That's way it's working the best. And when I do it around that first line. I don't let go and try to do all coils all at once, because that's like a pinch pot. When you tried to pinch one whole side up, it made it totally lopsided. So you've got to be symmetrical and careful about this and orderly about it, and just do one coil at a time, smooching them together. And you see how I need big enough coils so that I can make the coils connect to each other too. If they were too small, they'd be cracking. There wouldn't be enough clay to push around, and that would not be cool. Also, this line here where the two connect, you should smooth that together so we don't see that. All right, so that's a little rough. I admit it's rough. Some people like that rough texture, but now I use my finger, or I can use this tool to smooth it. I think my finger is going to work better. So as you get going with it, you might find that you're a little less rough with it as you smudge it. but I was kind of rough because I just wanted you to make sure, just like when you're doing the corners of any of your boxes or any of your slabs, you have to pull the clay into itself. Otherwise, it's not going to stick together. If you just think, I'm going to slime some water on there and it should all work, it doesn't. The clay needs to be pushed into itself, and that's how it stays together. So you do have to have enough clay to push in. So these bowls are going to end up they're going to end up to hold about 12 ounces of soup or liquid, and hopefully you'll make one for empty bowls. So it's got to come up to be about this tall, I would say. So once I've smooched in a couple of coils, I'll add a couple more, and then I'll smooch them in, and then I'll add one or two more. Say that again?
You can't smooth it in the inside?
No, you can. You can decide whether you want to. So this is choice number one. This is one choice. This is another choice, to smooth it on the inside and leave the outside. This one I kind of did both, Kayla, because I was showing somebody.
So why can't you do both?
Well, it doesn't make sense to do both. It's more work than you need to do. And if you wanted to, so that's why. You just don't need to. If you made your coils really thick, then go ahead if you didn't want to see the texture on either side. But I'd say for your first bowl, just do one side or the other, okay? Because when you do your vase is going to be tall and closed in, and if you see the coils on the inside, it's really not going to matter. It doesn't matter if you see those coils because the vase is going to be more closed in. And the bowls, I just want you to practice the technique to begin with. So let's just start with smoothing either the outside or the inside, and then moving on from there, okay? Any questions, people? You see that? Okay.